One of the most common questions people ask doctors or med students is, how do you remember everything you study? And honestly, for the first few years of med school, I didn't. I took pages of notes, rewatched lectures, highlighted textbooks, but none of it actually stuck. I was studying like a student, not like someone who needed to use the knowledge in real life. And that shifted me away from taking notes. Instead, I started using a method that helped me lock in information while I was learning it, so that I didn't have to spend hours revising later, freeing up time to do more of the things I care about. So I'll go through this triple layer method that will help you do the same. And for each part, I'll show you not just what to do, but why it works and how to actually apply it. So if you're serious about learning without having to take notes, you'll want to pay attention for all three parts. So first, most people believe that learning starts the moment they open a textbook, hit play on a video, or highlight that first sentence. But real learning, the kind that actually sticks without you needing to take notes, begins before any of that. And this starts with how you frame your mind to absorb information. Think of it like the gym. You don't start lifting heavy without warming up. Learning is the same. You need to activate your brain before you ask it to focus. This is called the setup layer. It's the first step to learning without notes, because if your brain isn't engaged from the beginning, no amount of rewatching will save you. So to build this setup, there's a few simple steps that shouldn't take more than just 10 minutes. First, change the way you orient yourself to the topic. Don't ask, what am I about to study? Ask, why does this matter to me? What purpose does it have in real life? For example, if I'm studying kidney physiology, I'll ask, how does this help me recognize dehydration or acute kidney injury on the wards? That one switch gives purpose to what you're learning. And if you can't figure it out on your own, asking AI like ChatGPT for context is a solid first step to orient yourself to what you're going to learn. And using AI like this is especially useful for situations where you're not really sure of the real life applications of what you're learning. The second step is to do what most students avoid, and it's to force your brain to guess what it already knows, even if it's wrong. Sit down and, without looking at notes or your textbooks, think about anything you do remember about the topic. Key terms, concepts, diagrams, anything. Spending just 5 minutes on this works well because it activates any prior knowledge, which acts as a good anchor for new information to stick when it comes in. And once this is done, you can move on to the final step of this first layer, which is an important step that most people stop doing at university, even though it was done all the time at school. And that's setting a focus filter, which is a mental commitment to what you want out of the study session. So this might be aiming to understand a specific concept, being able to teach someone about it, or being able to apply what you're learning into a real context. It's similar to learning objectives, but they're more like mission briefings. They tell your brain what to pay attention to and help you track if your study session actually worked. It's important because there's no point spending 4 hours at your desk if you don't even know what a successful study session looks like. The setup layer is there to give you direction, energy, and clarity, and it's going to make everything you do in the next two layers far more effective. So now that your brain's warmed up from the setup layer, you can move on to the second part, which is the conversion layer. And at the end of this section, I'll show you exactly how I'd use this in practice, so stick around for then. So this is the layer where real learning happens, not from watching videos or highlighting, but from actively converting what you're seeing into something your brain actually understands. But the thing is, this is the part most students skip because it feels harder, but that's the point. The friction is the learning. So here are 3 strategies that make this layer work, and they help you remember things without needing notes. First, you need to think like a YouTuber, not a student. When you learn something, imagine you need to explain it in a 2-minute video to someone who's a year or two below you, or someone who knows nothing about the topic. Avoid using jargon, don't use slides, just have a story that they can follow. If you can do this and you genuinely feel like someone who's a year or two below you can understand your explanation, then it means you understand the concept. If the concept still feels a bit vague, the second thing to do is to build an analogy. Take a complex concept and relate it to something simple. The analogy doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be something memorable so that it sticks. And again, if you have a problem making your own analogies, worst case is you just use any AI software to come up with one for you. And the third part of this layer is the most underrated way to learn, and it's about making predictions. Think about when you're watching a good TV show. You naturally start to guess what's going to happen next because you're engaged. Apply that to studying. pause and ask yourself what happens next. Even if you get it wrong, the act of guessing makes your brain more alert and more likely to remember. So let me show you how this all works together with a simple example. Suppose I'm learning how the heart works. First, I imagine explaining it as a YouTuber to someone who knows nothing about the topic or someone a year or two below me. So this would be explaining the heart as a double pump, where one side sends blood to the lungs and the other side sends it to the rest of the body. Then I build the analogy. I might describe the heart as a two-way delivery system. The right side picks up oxygen and the left side delivers it. And finally, I make predictions. One could be asking myself, what happens if the left side of the heart fails? This could then be guessing that blood backs up into the lungs, and that's why people with heart failure experience breathlessness. You can see that it was very quick to go through those 3 points, but it's a reliable and unique way to retain information. And the idea is to do this for each concept so that you lock in the concept as you come across them. You might find it difficult at first to do this because you're reshaping the information in a novel way, but as I described before, your brain remembers friction and not comfort. Now for a quick update, I'm working on building an online course and community and would highly appreciate your feedback and input. So check out the links in the description. It would help me out a lot if you would provide some feedback in terms of what you find helpful from my videos and what you feel would help even more as part of a course or community. Thank you in advance, and now back to the video. So by this point, you've primed your brain with the setup layer and you've processed the content with the conversion layer, but there's still one important step left. This point is where most people stop. They finish the study session, close their books and move on, assuming the learning is done. But real retention happens after you close the textbook, when you mentally reconstruct what you've just learned. And this is what's called the reinforcement layer. It's the part that actually locks the information into your brain so it sticks long term and shows up when it matters. And again, there are 3 key steps to make this layer work. The first thing is doing what's called a 5-minute mental playback. Right after you finish studying, close your laptop and put anything away, and just walk yourself through what you've learned from memory. Don't worry about perfect detail. What you want is the overall shape of the topic. For example, you might say that the topic you just covered had 3 main mechanisms, 1 clinical case and another rule to remember. What you're doing here is showing your brain that this wasn't just a blur of information. It had structure, and that structure makes it easier to recall later. The second thing to help reinforce the knowledge is called future self-questioning. It's a form of high-yield active recall where, at the end of your study session, you write down 3 to 4 questions that your future self in a few days should be able to answer. So if I was learning about heart attacks, I might ask some of these questions. You should ideally relate back to the focus filters you came up with in the setup layer, because if you can answer them later, you know your session worked. And finally, the third part of this layer is to make yourself uncomfortable on purpose. If your learning feels too smooth or too easy, chances are you're not actually learning. One of the best things I ever did for my retention was to stop writing and instead try to talk through a topic out loud with no prompts. It's going to feel awkward at first, but every time you get stuck, you've just found a weakness, and fixing those weak points is what builds deep, long-term knowledge. If you stick to this method, you'll find yourself learning much faster, not because you're working harder, but because you're no longer wasting time writing notes that you'd only have to keep rereading again and again. Instead, you dive straight into understanding, which means you can cover more content in a fraction of the time with significantly better retention. But now a problem is that even with the best method, you'll struggle to make real progress if you can't stay focused. And because we live in a digital age with intelligent algorithms, it's extremely easy to get distracted by your phone in the middle of a study session. This was an issue in the past even for me, but over the last few years, I've managed to cut my screen time down to under 30 minutes a day. And that's what helped me stay consistent and actually get things done. So click this video here, where I talk about how you can stop wasting hours on your phone so that you can take control of your focus and use your time on what actually matters.